My husband had been in the ground barely 2 hours when my mother-in-law leaned in close and murmured, "That house belongs to my family now." I was still clutching the folded flag against my chest. At Arlington, the breeze drifted through the trees and across endless rows of white stone, while soldiers in dress blues stood frozen at attention. My husband, Colonel Daniel Mercer, had been laid to rest with more dignity than most men ever receive. When a young serviceman placed the flag into my hands, his voice broke on the words, "On behalf of a grateful nation." And all I could do was nod. Daniel would have despised a scene. He used to polish his coffee mug before turning in each night, shine his shoes long after retiring from active duty, and he always said you could tell everything about a person by watching how they treated waitstaff and janitors. So when Vivian Mercer stepped up beside me near the funeral car, her pearls gleaming against her black coat, I didn't so much as blink. She glanced at the flag like it was nothing more than paperwork. "We need to be sensible," she whispered. I assumed she meant flowers, bills, maybe relatives to notify. Then she leaned closer and said it plainly. "That house belongs to my family now. So does the company." I fixed my eyes on a loose thread hanging from her sleeve. Behind her, one of Daniel's old friends spoke quietly with someone from our church, while my sister carried lilies toward the trunk of a car. No one else caught what Vivian had just said. I could have made a scene right there. Instead, I held the flag tighter and simply said, "Not today." She smiled like she'd already claimed victory. That night, the house felt enormous. Daniel's reading glasses still rested beside his recliner. His half-finished crossword puzzle sat on the kitchen table next to a cup of coffee gone cold that I couldn't bring myself to pour out. At 7 o'clock, my lawyer, Grant Ellis, showed up carrying a folder. "Vivian has already contacted a probate attorney," he told me. I let out a tired laugh. Of course she had. Grant opened the folder anyway. "You could fight this. It won't be easy, but you're not without options." I looked toward Daniel's empty chair and said, "Let her have it." Grant blinked in surprise. "You're willing to give up everything?" I shook my head. "I want her to believe she's winning." He studied my face for a long moment before quietly closing the folder. After he left, I sat in Daniel's closet and cried into one of his old field jackets. The grief felt like something physical, a weight pressing down on my chest. A week later, tucked inside a green binder in his workshop, I discovered a sealed envelope with my name written across it in his unmistakable handwriting. I almost tore it open right then, but something held me back. The next morning, I phoned Grant instead. By that point, word had already spread through town. Vivian was telling anyone who'd listen how graciously I was stepping aside. Even strangers at the grocery store gave me sympathetic looks. Then Grant drove me out to Mercer Precision, the company Daniel and I had built from nothing. We specialized in repairing hydraulic systems for fire departments, rescue teams, and utility crews. Walking inside, the familiar scent of oil and coffee settled over me like a memory. Employees who'd worked there for decades looked up from their stations, worry written across their faces. "Are our jobs safe?" someone asked. "I don't know yet," I admitted. That night, I finally opened Daniel's letter. It was short. He instructed me to check the blue estate binder, not the green one, explaining that he'd planned for every contingency because an officer never leaves his people exposed. Inside the blue binder, buried beneath tax documents and trust paperwork, I found the truth. The company and the house had been transferred into the Mercer Legacy Trust years earlier. Daniel had named 3 trustees, me, our operations manager Eli, and a veterans foundation. Vivian's name appeared nowhere. The hearing took place on a cold Tuesday morning. Vivian arrived dressed in cream silk, radiating certainty. Her attorney spoke at length about legacy and bloodline. Then Grant stood and asked the judge to examine the trust documents directly. Within minutes, everything shifted. The assets Vivian had been fighting for were never part of the probate estate to begin with. The company was required to remain in Virginia, preserve its veteran hiring program, and keep the majority of its staff employed. Vivian stared ahead as though the ground had opened beneath her. Then the judge read aloud from Daniel's private letter to her. It offered a modest cash gift and gently reminded her that love and ownership were never the same thing. Her claim was dismissed. Outside, the employees were waiting on the courthouse steps. Eli laughed when I told him he'd been named a trustee. "Daniel really trusted me," he said. "He trusted everyone who stayed," I replied. The company kept running. The apprenticeship program grew. That spring, Vivian sent a brief written apology, and I tucked it inside Daniel's binder without ever responding. On Memorial Day, I carried white roses to Arlington and stood at Daniel's grave as the leaves shifted quietly around my feet. "I understand now," I whispered. "You were protecting people." For the first time since the funeral, what I felt wasn't anger, it was peace. Daniel's true legacy was never the house or the company or even the trust. It was the lives he had studied and safeguarded long before he ever had to leave them behind.